Looking good. I see Pastor Dr. Shawn Moore by way of Minnesota, Minneapolis. The dreads are always looking good. Got an extra sparkle to them. The beard. I'm jealous. I tried to grow something out here. You just don't know where blessings will come, and it looked just patchy. Then I went for the full goatee, and people were like, "What are you doing?" Like I can't win, so like I finally settled on the goatee. And
there you go. So like, good, man.
Look at the diversity of let's keep real, of Black men here. Like, if you think to yourself, all Black men look alike, here's Exhibit A. And
there it is.
There's diversity in the midst of
there it is
as well. And I love
the melanin is diverse.
So I'm so thankful for you. I feel like we're being honorable about that, like 15, 18, 20 minutes, and we know we can go forever. And I'm just thankful that we're still on this planet. So if folks have been following us, number one, I want to be clear about this. If you're just now being exposed to Mission One Race and this 8 days to choose the first time, just know that, not knocking anyone else, we talk about 1 to a 3 to 1 ratio, meaning we talk one part and we act 3 parts. Like we actively are bringing folks together in community, actively putting out content that we're absorbing, all of that. But there are times that discussion is necessary, because the reason I'm saying it is because rhetoric at some point just becomes so profound, and then it becomes, when are we going to come together? Like, or when are we going to get innovative? So I'll be honest with you, I had to forgive myself and say that, but sometimes conversation is necessary, and it can lay the foundation for moving forward, as long as it's followed with action. So we're trying to give challenge steps to each of these conversations, but know that this is one piece of our 3 paths and multiple journeys toward oneness, right? In the midst of which, an overflow of that from a very tangible, grounded place comes the justice conversations, comes the advocacy that's necessary, comes the love and action that's necessary. But today we are in day 6. So we went through the principles. Our principles is 8 of them, the journey towards oneness, and today is reconcile. And it's so unique that honestly, when people look at the steps, they almost feel like, and we said this last year though, let's get to reconciliation. And I think that's to alleviate some of the discomfort and awkwardness, but bathing in some awkwardness is partly necessary when you're dealing with the truth. I try to have a conversation of both, like unity, truth in that sandwich, and then leaving with hope. Because if we're leaving in hopelessness as well, we're wrong. But the reality is reconciliation, to even have the grounds for it, the soil for it, I think is necessary to humbly seek understanding and forgiveness. I think it's necessary to seek relation and then healing. And then what you will say for sure is with your studies and with your energy that you've leaned into, is connecting or being in proximity is absolutely the right order for us to talk reconciliation. So maybe lean into that first question, like just how critical is the willingness and the actual genuine desire? I mean, if we're honest, y'all, if there's not a genuine desire, if there's just a have to, if there's just a mandatory for like, oh, here we go with this diversity stuff, here we go, yada, 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 equity, here we go, people are suffering and there's systemic issues. If it's that space, all of that hard work needs to work. And then also some of the motivation may not be grounded and or enough to do the work necessary to like come out of our normal paths, connect, and then dig into this reconciliation, which is not easy. So that was a long statement question, but really saying that precursor, what is the prerequisite to reconciliation, and are we even in line right now?
Yeah, so I would argue that the pre-work rests in 2 different spheres. One is justice, and the other is healing. And so we don't want to talk about taking things from people, giving things to people. That's fine. Let's start with justice, and let's start with healing, because those are the 2 main components that need to start off as it relates to reconciliation. I think what has happened is that there are quite a few people that see reconciliation not in its not fully. They see it as I want to be reconciled with you. Let me take you out to lunch and let's have a good relationship and let me get to know you and you can get to know me. Those are really good things, right? The 3 F's of food, fabric, and festival, those are phenomenal, right? Those are phenomenal anthropological things that you can engage in. But that's not the beginning work of reconciliation. Reconciliation doesn't mean let's go back to a point in our history where we didn't get along so that we can start at that spot. No, reconciliation is going back to the cause of the issue. And so reconciliation isn't about shaking hands and parties and things like that. It's about deconstructing the wall so that you can have a party, that you can shake hands. And so a lot of times, dominant culture will see reconciliation as a means to let's just go and learn about who they are and how they do things, which is really good. But that's not reconciliation. The reconciliation that I understand it comes from the word apokataleia, which means to remove the barrier so you can have an authentic relationship. And so step one in this model that I've created is literally, it's 2 parts. It's Ubuntu, I am because you are, and Sabona, I see you. And you cannot have Ubuntu or Sabona without having healing. I can't look at you and say, I see you and I am one with you, and not first consider you've been jacked and I need to help in that healing process. So again, if you're not about wanting to heal, wanting to do justice work, then everything else you're doing might be good, but it's not reconciliation. And as long as the wall is up between us, the most you can do is throw fruit over the wall. I can catch it on the other side. You can throw food over. Hey, I know you're hungry. Here's some food. Hey, I know you got some money issues. Here's some money. And just you're throwing money over the wall instead of saying, there's this thing in front of me.
Yes.
And I can't see you and I can't touch you. I need to deconstruct this wall with you. That way, oh, wow, I didn't realize this. I see you. You've got dreads and you've got this. It's the fully seeing someone. And we don't fully see each other. We'd rather like to go out and have parties and Cinco de Mayo and Hmong New Year and the newest flavor, Juneteenth. And let's say about that. But we have these things that we like to engage in and call those reconciliation. Now,
no, keep going.
Because
there's only going to be one more. Flush it out. I'm sorry.
No, those are good. Hmong New Year, Cinco de Mayo, Juneteenth. Those are really good 3 F's, right? So I'm not saying you aren't supposed to do them,
right?
Because you are supposed to do them, but you need to first start off with removing the barrier that hinders authentic relationships, because barbecue ribs, Hmong egg rolls, and burritos cannot deconstruct the wall. They taste good. They're good in my stomach. I want to know how to make them. But just because I engage in that stuff, there's still this wall. Until the wall comes down, there's no reconciliation.
So watch this. And I'm pausing not because I'm at a loss for words. Let's digest that. And we're going to really, because these are short conversations. I wasn't going to share something. I'm going to share this graphic because of what you just said. But I want to say 3 things very quickly before I share. Number one, do not discredit or misconstrue what Shawn is saying. Number one, I know this because we're friends and we've been co-laboring in this space. Don't stop whatever effort you're making, but don't stop short of where we need to go. Be that person. That's one. So if you are that person, I don't want any shame or any condemnation, whether you're doing nothing or doing just some of these more surface level things. Number 2, I'm just putting word around it. What I heard was, what's your goal? Right? See, the reason reconciliation, that's like, what's really your goal? And that's a difference in some of these movements, no matter what the approach is that I try to discern within myself, whether I'm aligning with it or not, is like, what's the goal? And sometimes the goal is not what we think it is, right? The goal is just to look well on the surface. That's not the deep enough goal. And sometimes the other goal, actually, believe it or not, on the other overcorrection is shame. Is really to like make someone out. And neither one are we a part of or feel like that's necessary. Watch this. But number three, what I feel like the version divinely kind of given to me through both experiences as well as prayer is that wall that I want to give a potential name to that comes out in different ways is a lie. Because the enemy works with lies. And this lie is a lie, a foundational lie. And this graphic tries to depict, maybe imperfectly, of the lie of intrinsic difference. Now watch this. I'm going to try to share it. Listen to me. Differences, I'm not saying that. I'm not talking extrinsic. I'm not talking all the beautiful things, the uniqueness. Remember, our saying is we are uniquely the same. But when it comes down to the guttural, the truth of the way we're built as human beings, as spiritual beings, as God's children, right? No matter whether we believe in the same faith or not. I'm sharing the wrong thing. The same faith or not. Let me go back. This is a journey, and I call this potentially the dangerous journey, if you will. I want to bring it up. I don't know why it's not showing itself. It's going to show itself right now. And what I want to say is, come on. Why is this not working? I'm gonna just share my screen in general, which isn't my ideal, isn't the ideal scenario, but I'm gonna do it, and it should work out with that. Can you all see this chart? Yes or no? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you will tell me, Shawn. Watch this. A lot happening here. We can unpack it later. But if you see in that corner, remember, you're talking about a wall. Potentially, this is the bricks that have laid on the wall on the foundation of a lie that I have uprooted in my soul, that intrinsically, to the DNA level, to the spiritual living being level, I do not believe in, nor do I see it taught anywhere in our origin story that we are intrinsically different. One trip to the dust has created all these variations of beautiful image and likeness. So in the deepest sense, we are, right, made of the same building blocks put together in unique ways. If we believe that intrinsic lie of difference, watch that, boom, I'm talking intrinsic difference, don't quote me wrong, then you can start to have what's called these preferences. And unchecked, they get dangerous. And those preferences of humanity, not preferences of mayonnaise, then you could potentially, that's what makes space for bias. The bias in itself, all of us wrestle with some form of bias. Let's keep it real. But when it's unchecked as well, it starts to go to prejudgments or prejudice. Where now we're getting dangerous, right? Because now, before you even open your mouth, Shawn, I see you, you're black, you dreads, watch him. Or whatever, like this young man, this is his personality, this is where they're from. Oh, you're from where? Watch him. Or whatever it is, then becomes even more dangerous discrimination and acts of discrimination. Now I have the right, I have some authority, I have a business, I have territory, I have a job, I'm a manager, I can discriminate based on, again, on this lie, and I'm okay with it because deep in my soul, the wall that's built is, we're not equal anyway. You're almost a different human. Then make space. And the reason I have that last space in red is because I do feel like, family, that there's something supernaturally evil that happens before we get to the real racism, that real sexism, the real exploitation that I can feel fine in my soul and say deep down, before you open your mouth, just from your image, from your background, from your ability, from your orientation, from your, I judge you, I hate you, right? And I'll even harm you. And it's all from this seed of potentially the wall that you're talking about. Just for me, that's how I see it personified and built out. And it's dangerous. If we don't realize that actually is there, we don't see the statements. I had a conversation with, I forgot who the other day, and we were talking about with Bishop Matthews, and he's talking about how the polarity of the conversation around slavery was happening. There were abolitionists from the very beginning, and there was an intrinsic difference in their approach. One deep down believed in, and I forgot the theory, that we actually were what? A less human, less divine. So therefore it was okay to enslave us. And the folks that were abolitionists did not believe that intrinsic lie and said, no, we are one and the same. Therefore, it's unjust. How do we even found a country on this lie of slavery? Because that's another man. I went a long way there, but you really inspired me to have that moment. I really want to hear your thoughts, even if you feel like, hey, I want to twist something or refine something, or even, you know what I mean? Speak.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And so you can tell, there is a dropping off point in everything. There's a point to where if you drink too much alcohol, you will literally pass out. Even if you're a stone cold alcoholic, you have a tolerance level to where it's like, okay, sleep time. And so everyone's got this thing. And you can see that the same thing applies to racism or any kind of ism, right? So you can have stone cold racists. You can have racist individual who is African American. You can have a racist individual who is European American. They can have little babies. Take those babies, put them in the same room. Those kids aren't going to be fighting each other and harming each other because they're infants. What do they know? They know I have to eat, I have to sleep, take care of me. You can switch kids. You can switch those two kids. They can be raised separately, not in their own home, but they can literally be raised to take on the culture of what goes on. Now, at some point, the culture gets infused, and that becomes the way of life. And so again, this understanding of racism is something that's taught, right? It's a thing that can be taught. And so if it can be taught, it's an education thing. It's pedagogical. So it can be untaught, right? And so this is what we go back to these walls, right? The walls that you have, these building blocks, and we start looking at this block's a lie, it can't be here. These two blocks are a lie, they can't be here. And basically, it's this idea of saying these blocks don't exist because these are lies. That's not to say that if you're on this list of things and you've seen like, well, I've been doing the 3 F's only. Am I not doing reconciliation? Not saying that. What I'm saying is that, are you getting to the core of the issue? Now, it might take some time, right, for you to build up into this thing. But I'll tell you this, if you continue only to do those 3 F's and you're wondering, why am I not getting further ahead? Why am I not really understanding what's going on? It's literally because the 3 F's don't actually get to what's actually going on. As you look at the state, so this is Minnesota, right? We've got some troubling issues going on here. We've had homicides of unarmed Black men, and you could say, well, we won the civil case and we got $2 million. I'll stop and ask, hey, do you want $2 million or do you want Joey to be back? Oh, I want Joey back. Well, then again, the idea, it's tossing these fruits over the wall is not the same as saying we need to get to the core issue. Now, you have all these different things, and the church is a big church, right? It's a big church, it's a big people, and people are doing multiple different things within that thing. I'm not arguing that if by wanting to do the 3 F's that you're not doing something positive. I would never argue that. You need to have a starting place. But I will say, you spend 15, 20 years doing the 3 F's and you wonder, why am I not getting ahead? You maybe might stop and say, what's the core issue here? Because eventually food, clothing, and festivals will literally change because cultures change or because it might not exist anymore. But the core issue will still exist. And I think, right, as a follower of Jesus Christ, that it's real simple. Jesus said, I will be with you to the end of the day, yes. Right? And so our job is to go and to teach those what we've been taught. And a part of the issue is we have, we've got mainliners, like that's me, I'm mainline Christianity. We've forgotten what the gospel says. And you got evangelicals who literally aren't me have forgotten what to actually do. And so you've got these evangelical folks and these mainliners. You got to put this stuff together to where your gospel, the good news,
Yes,
actually is the good news. And anytime you're going to say you're going to give the gospel to someone, it can include no bad news, no matter what it is.
Yeah,
it
and
can
it needs
include,
to and applicable to all different walks of life. It's
yes,
appealing to the masses and not by compromise, but because
yes,
it speaks of anyone brokenhearted, oppressed, captive, outline, whatever the issue, internally, mentally, socially. It's a holistic, full gospel, like it's the kingdom gospel, and we have just different versions of the gospel happening. And you said something, and where I'm going to land the plane, I'll let you finish. But you said something that's key, that's in my heart, even as well as we do this work. So you said mainline, you got the evangelical approach, and like the gospel has to be inclusive for all. And where were you going with that? I didn't want to stop it.
I was just going to say that almost 20 years ago, I was in South Africa when I first started studying doing my major paper on reconciliation. We're in this shanty town and we're visiting all these places where reconciliation is going on. And one woman said, you want to know what the gospel is? And we're like, oh goodness, give it to us. We're all open. And she goes, okay, the gospel is rice. Like, what? The gospel's rice. So that's
Okay.
The gospel's rice. What does that mean? And she said, until individuals can come here and give rice with no hooks involved, they're not talking about the gospel. And I was like blown away, like, oh my goodness, right? Because I was like, well, here are the rules of how to accept Christ. Get on your knees, do your hands like this, bow your head, say these different things. You're going to be saved, and then you can worry about the idea of all these other things coming afterwards. And she was like, if you want to present your case, you need to present it in a way that can be heard, can be seen, can be tasted, can be felt. Sometimes there are individuals that need to be in a jacket before they'll allow you to wrap their soul up. Sometimes there are people who need real food before they'll accept your spiritual food, right? Sometimes people need to see, feel, touch, and taste extrinsic things before they'll allow you in to do the intrinsic. And it's interesting how you see Christ do both and at the same time beautifully. It was just a constant in and out thing. He would heal and say, go, don't do that anymore. He would heal, don't do that anymore. He would paint this picture. It was always like, yes, your faith has saved you. Go and sin no more. It wasn't like, okay, you're healed. Let me go to church now and give the gospel. It was this both and we've forgotten it.
What you just did, and what we're gonna leave folks at, like rice. Make no mistake about it. Mission One Race, not necessarily just a Christian nonprofit, that's built on the gospel, built on the truth that our lane in this conversation is this. We hear you, we see you, we believe there's pain, we believe that justice is not going to shame anyone, but we also believe that there's a remnant, and I think it's a majority, that do not subscribe to what's happening, both Christian and non-Christian, and believe we can do better. So the foundational truth is we are uniquely the same. We can and will transform together with and for love, one heart, one mind, one soul, one institution at a time. That we do absolutely seek out the hearts of the biased, not in attack, but in relationship, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're about. So I would say this. Before sometimes we can say why aren't we respected or relevant right now as folks that are of the Christian faith? Are we pausing and not just talking at people and getting on a knee and saying, I didn't know that was happening. And I don't think it's okay. And we're gonna do what we can, even if it's hard, even if it's awkward. And the recurring theme that you and I both said is that even though it might be long obedience in the same direction, and all of us are needed in this. So by you, lastly, I want you to leave with the Center for Reconciliation that you launched, along with Mission and Race, as well as you being senior pastor at Living Spirit UMC. Shout out to you. Congratulations on that. Those are 3 partnerships right there. Mission One Race partners with churches, schools, companies, nonprofits, right? So we are in partnership with the Center for Reconciliation. We are in partnership with Living Spirit UMC. And thank you for using your influence, your life experience, right? Your education as well. And a posture, though, I know you, Shawn. Ultimately, we're not saying we want justice separately. We want unity, wholeness, justice together. That's the difference, like to get right next to each other, in proximity to each other. So if you wanted to, I'm gonna leave with your word, kind of just let folks know, and you're gonna see more of that implemented, because he's already spoken into our curriculum. When you're going through our one community group, which we're launching there at Living Spirit UMC, there's an educational piece of it, because we journey, just like what you're saying with Mission One Race. Emotionally, we want to take folks on the journey, because we believe that's important. Cognitive, we want to take folks on the journey. So we have a blessing of having folks like this who this is their thing that's built into the DNA of our curriculum. We want to experientially take them on a journey, sweating together, laughing together. Absolutely. Like Shawn said, breaking bread is not enough, but it is good, right? It is good. And lastly, Ohana, as a family, we want to journey together with other movements for justice, right? That are aligned with a positive, holistic, inclusive approach. No one, we do not peddle shame, and intentionally with you. So I am thankful for you. How does someone get connected? Kind of where you at, kind of Living Spirit and or Center for Reconciliation. And I'm so thankful that you launched that, because this is an example of sharpshooting a specific piece. He's not saying, oh, don't collaborate with Mission One Race. All you need is a Center for Reconciliation. And Mission One Race is not saying we're all things to all people in this journey. We're saying collectively, this problem is so big and so complicated. The same way we got here over hundreds and even potentially thousands of years of humanity. If we want to back this bus up, it takes community by community activation.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Anything? He's a good word.
No, again, I want to go back to engaging in activities that can lead to reconciliation. Because like if you read my dissertation or you hear me in a lecture, it can easily be like, oh my goodness, I'm not doing what I should be doing as it relates to the core issues of reconciliation. If you choose to start at the 3 F's, food, fabric, and festival, recognize those are 3 one-way streets. And if you stay on those streets long enough, you will find yourself in the 4th PH, the philosophies of this thing called reconciliation. If you journey along people enough, you will then begin to see the pain, and then you can be like, oh wow, I didn't recognize it. Let me work through you. Because again, if reconciliation is not happening, if there's not healing going on, right? There's got to be healing, because with the healing comes the newness. And so you can do a great deal of things and not be healed, and that scar or that scar tissue will continue to fester and everything else. You will have scars, but is it healing? And I think you need to make sure that you are in the process of healing people. And again, food, fabric, and festival can be used to heal, right? A lot of these festivals and ceremonies are birthed out of a great deal of pain. Juneteenth is birthed out of pain, right? And so you can have something birthed out that includes fabric and food and festivities. But if your whole entire thing is just eating their food, dancing, buying their clothing, and then saying, that was a great weekend, see you, bye, that's not it.
Let it hit us deeper. I receive it, and we're going to continue to get better. We're not a perfect movement. We're not, I think all of us have to continue to check our own potential lies that are running through our head, make sure our biases are in check and all that, because that is what the enemy would want. I'm so thankful for you again. This is food for the soul, and I know you believe this. I have hope, and I feel like if there's a space where we lose that hopelessness. If I lose it, I need to sit down somewhere. And this needs to not be my work. I'm being serious. If it gets to that point where it turns, where there's been enough frustration, enough whatever. And so why, as long as I'm sitting in space, and I think it's to the rest of my life, I have to and want to walk in a space that there can be a supernatural revival of sorts of love, mission, and oneness that is our greatest witness and is the gospel. That's how I feel.
There's no chance for change on your last breath. The breath before you take your last breath, there can be change, right? There can be change. Hey, I recognize I'm going to be dead. Hey, when you get to where you're going to go, remember me. I will remember you when I get to that place. Last second breath right there. And so again, it's educational. If you can be trained in your environment in one direction, you can be trained out of it. It's a training thing, but we don't want to get trained. So we got to be able to be willing to be trained out of things that we are involved in.
God bless you, brother.
Take care, sir.
All right. God bless. Stay right there with me, please.